If you've spent really any amount of time around the Chronic Wheel online, right, you've probably run into this image at some point. It's usually referred to as Hyperborea, Agartha, or Thule, or some kind of Viking Atlantis. But these are some pretty gross misconceptions, to put it one way. Like, they're not bad, they're not hurting anybody, but they're just wrong.
But, dude, why? This is clearly Hyperborea. It has a snow and the cool symbol and everything.
That's exactly the first problem with this misconception. It's that symbol. To really understand what that symbol actually is, we should put some context to it, so let's get into this bitch. This painting, titled The Exodus of the Hyperboreans, I kinda lied in the title, but bear with me here. It was created by Vsevolod Ivanov, circa the late 90s, early 2000s, let's just say late 90s, for convenience sake. It was for his Vedic Russia series, which he cites the inspiration for in this interview. Which there's no audio or recording of, and we don't know what this guy's voice sounds like at all, so I'll have to do an impression of him. Of what he probably sounded like. During the second half of the 1960s, vivid and fascinating films dedicated to ancient mythology and history began appearing on the cinema screens. There are also many adventure films inspired by the history of the Western Middle Ages. At that time, I consumed a vast amount of historical adventure literature. I fell in love with the world of antiquity and the world of the Western Middle Ages. From 1988 onward, my passion for painting began to grow, and by 2004, I created many paintings, mostly small scale. My themes included antiquity, the Middle Ages, churches, traditional Russian manor houses, and cosmic landscapes and exotic beasts. Even back then, I already painted 50 large-scale works depicting Hyperborea, Atlantis, and medieval Rus. Since 2004, I had created canvases exclusively centered on themes of the Vedic Rus, Hyperborea, and Atlantis.
Why are you showing me this? What's with all this Vedic talk? I thought that was a Hindu thing. Also, Atlantis?
Yeah, Atlantis. He said Atlantis. So what Big Ivanov, we'll call him Big Ivanov because there's also a writer and a Nolman of the same name. It's a very common Russian name, so Big Ivanov, he's our guy. He's talking about Yinglism. It's a fringe branch of Rodnavri, or the Slavic community, depending on who you ask. It's centered on building a Slavo-Aryan identity, hence all the Vedic talk. The Indo-Aryans made the Vedas and shit, kinda checks out. The modern Yinglis group was founded in the early 90s by Alexander Yuryevich Hinovich, but it already existed in kind of decentralized forms in the late 80s, which lines up with our interview from The Big Ivy, saying that his passion for painting began to grow around the late 80s. So that symbol in the background, around that sword with the Ice King looking motherfucker, that's the symbol of the Heavenly Kin, or the four Aryan races. They got the gray-eyed Da-Aryans, green-eyed Ka-Aryans, hazel-eyed Araseni, and the blue-eyed Savato-Rusi. They also think these guys came from space. Midgard Earth was located at the intersection of 8 cosmic paths that connected inhabited Earths in various light worlds, where only the peoples of the Great Race lived. In ancient times, representatives of white humanity were the first to settle and inhabit Midgard Earth. Many years ago, the Great Asa took place. The Great War of light and heavenly gods from the world of Prav with the dark forces that came from the world of Hell. The Great Asa between light and darkness engulfed the worlds of Yavi, Navi, and Prav. These battles between light and darkness occur at certain intervals after the expiration of the Zavarojit cycle in 99 circles of life. That is, every 40,176 years.
We rolled back into Idaho! Follow me!
TLDR, these four Aryan nations, I'm doing air quotes, the four Aryan nations still in space, they allied, piloted some ship in this war, but then decided they wanted to come and crash on Earth for a bit, and then never came back. They settled in what the Yinglis call Daria, and what most people call Hyperborea. The Yinglists, and actually a lot more mainstream Russian historians and geologists, they link the idea of Hyperborea with the hypothetical, theorized, ancient continent of Arctida. But I thought Hyperborea was supposed to be our big, cool Viking heaven. What happened to that? Well, what happened is that if you take some pages out of the Western esoteric thinkers like Gideon von List, Rosarin Serrano, Avolis, Avitri Devi, among others, they never really pin Hyperborea to the Arctic. While it's still a extreme north setting from where a white race is supposed to have originated, or coming from space, according to some, it's just like where they settled at first, whatever. It's always pinned near like the North Atlantic and paired with ideas like Thule, Agartha, and Shambhala. the concepts of vril, cyclical history, metaphysics, gnosis, the demiurge, etc., etc. Not to mention that these dudes specifically loved to dunk on Slavs. Like, look at this comment on Listus Armenenschaft book. I found it interesting, for example, that List pointed out how the Slavic East was also dependent on the heraldic art of the West, where Germanic runes and art with Germanic names were preserved, albeit soulless and petrified. They're basically saying that the Russians stole our shit, don't listen to them. So these guys say that Hyperborea is in the Atlantic and that migrations came from there into Scandinavia where they became Nordics and, white, Anglo-Saxon kind of people. While the Yinglis say that Hyperborea is definitely in the Arctic and that migrations came down into Russia, where they became the Slavo-Aryans, as conveyed in Ivanov's painting, the heavenly kin departing from Hyperborea into Russenia. We should probably note now that Hyperborea was originally a Greek invention, beyond Boreas, that's the Greek god of the North Wind, and that's why the Yinglists, an entirely new mythology, call it primarily by other names, Hyperborea only one of them for the familiarity. So why is it this painting that gets used and called Hyperborea? It's not the Hyperborea of the Greeks, and it's not the Hyperborea of the Armanists, but it's of this fringe Slav neo-pagan group. So why is it that this painting is the one that gets called Hyperborea? Well, it's literally called the Exodus of the Hyperboreans. It looks cool as fuck. And all three myths at least agree that this place was both very ancient and very cold. Snowy looking and shit. The dudes that found it didn't care about Daria or the Ascendians or whatever because it already maps perfectly onto the idea of, dude, look, it's Nordic aliens. Yinglism fell from any prominence it had after parties like the RNU collapsed in the 2000s, which let the painting get appropriated for a different mythos. You don't even have to do any heavy lifting, just point to the swastika and the Hyperborea in the name, and that's what it ends up becoming. People don't have the time to pull the curtain back on Ivanov, Kianovich, trying to differentiate between the ideas of Yinglist and Armanist ideas because they don't know what the fuck those are. They probably haven't even picked up the books of their own aesthetic, they just picked up the first or third Hyperborea picture off Google Images because it looks fucking awesome. So, it's Hyperborea, but it's not their Hyperborea. It's not Thule, it's not Agartha, it's not Atlantis, even though Ivanov did apparently paint Atlantis. This painting isn't Atlantis. It's not really anything else any other kind of Western mythology made up. It was just some Russian dude having fun because he happened to like that kind of fantastical style and believed certain things, which happened to click with other dudes' kind of fantasies and beliefs. In a way. But it does look pretty fucking cool, so I can't really complain.
Fire.